When I say the word America, what does that mean to you? If, like me, your native language is English, this may seem like an obvious question. America is right here, the country. However, some people would strongly disagree with this, particularly those from South America. To South Americans, America is not a country but a continent. This is America, right here. While English speakers would say those are two continents, North America and South America, collectively the Americas, Spanish and Portuguese speakers refer to it as one continent, America. Of course, it's not just South Americans who view the continents this way. France also agrees on the sixth continent view of the world. This can be seen by the 5 rings of the Olympics, which represent the 5 inhabited continents of the world, i.e. not Antarctica: Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia and America. And recently I've been seeing a lot of arguing over this very issue in the comments section. For starters, how about we look at the history of the Americas and where the name America actually came from? So, as we all know, Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, right? Well, no, actually. People had been living on the American continent for more than 10,000 years before Columbus supposedly discovered them. Historians believe that the early settlers in the Americas walked from Asia during the last ice age when Alaska and Siberia were connected by a land bridge, before splitting into separate continents. So for thousands of years, people had been living in Europe and people were living in the Americas, but neither people knew about the other. Europe, Africa and Asia, or if you prefer Afro-Eurasia, the supercontinent, was thought of as the whole world, which can be seen from early world maps. Okay, so Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, but he was the first European there, right? Well, once again, no, actually. Icelandic Vikings settled on the east coast of Canada in what is today Newfoundland nearly 500 years before the voyages of Columbus. It's ironic, the two things Christopher Columbus is famous for, discovering America and being the first to suggest the Earth was round, both have one key thing in common. They're not actually true. It was suggested the Earth was round as early as the 6th century BC by Pythagoras and later studied by Plato and Aristotle. All educated people of Columbus's time knew the Earth was round and not flat. The circumference of the Earth is around 40,000 kilometres, and this was known by people in Columbus's time, because it was calculated around 240 BC with surprising accuracy. However, Columbus was convinced the Earth was much smaller than this, and when he set out on his first voyage, he wasn't trying to discover new land but to find a better trade route to India, because the current land route had become more difficult due to the rise of the Ottoman Empire. He thought he could sail west from Spain and reach India in just a few weeks, thus avoiding the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. People didn't doubt Columbus because they thought the Earth was flat, but because they knew the actual size of the Earth and knew India was too far away to sail to. Had the Americas not existed, Columbus and his team would have died long before getting anywhere near Asia, as they'd have run out of supplies. 5 weeks after setting off for India, his team reached the Bahamas. However, instead of realising he was in a previously unknown land, Columbus thought he had arrived in Japan. He also explored Cuba, which he assumed was China. Columbus named the Caribbean islands the West Indies since he thought he was near India. The Bahamas was already occupied by indigenous people, which Columbus referred to as Indians. This is why Native Americans are also called American Indians, even though they're not actually from India, but because Columbus incorrectly referred to the indigenous peoples of the Americas as Indians, and the name just sort of stuck. While Christopher Columbus may not have discovered the Americas, nor was he the first European there, but what he was the first to do was bring the Americas to the attention of Europe, which led to the European colonisation of the Americas, albeit thinking he had been to East Asia. He died in 1506, never realising where he had actually been. Between 1497 and 1504, Amerigo Vespucci made several voyages to the West Indies and South America and correctly concluded that it was not East Asia but a previously unknown continent, which he referred to as the New World, while Afro-Eurasia was therefore the Old World. The New World was thought of as the 4th continent, though little was known about North America at this point. The first ever use of the word America was in 1507 by a German cartographer who named the new continent after Amerigo Vespucci, who was the first to recognise it as a new continent. In this world map, he depicted South America and small parts of Central America with the word America written on South America. This is why South Americans may be offended by the use of the word America to mean the USA, since its earliest usage was used to refer to just South America. Amerigo Vespucci died in 1512, never knowing that an entire continent was named after him. As time went on and more of the American continent was explored, world maps began to evolve. In 1527, South America was shaping up nicely while the east coast of North America was starting to take shape, although there was no use of the word America on this map. This was the first map to include America to refer to North America as well as South America, and at first glance it's hard to see what's going on, but if you tilt your head to the left you can see all of the continents. By 1569 the world was starting to look right, although this map also has no mention of America, and the Americas were labelled India Nova, or New Indies. And in one of the many written Latin words which some wonderful human being has translated into English, the cartographer refers to 3 distinct continents: the Old World, which he didn't specifically name but referred to as the place where the human race was created and whence it spread by multiplying all over the face of the earth; the New Indies, and the southern parts, i.e. Antarctica. 1 year later, and this map was published, unsure of what to call the Americas, the cartographer simply opted for writing America or the New Indies, not sure on what the general consensus was when referring to the New World. In 1595, the name America still hadn't stuck, but this was the first map to have different colours for the continents, and America, or the New Indies, are both yellow and therefore considered as one. Fast forward to 1606, and a very significant map in American history, as this was the first map to have North America and South America. Here we can see the words America Septentrionale, which is Latin for, well, North America. Then we can see the words America Meridionale, which means, well, I'll let you figure that one out. By 1794 we had what is possibly the first accurate world map. North America and South America had now been clearly established as 2 separate continents, as they're both shown in different colours. So, the term America was originally used for South America, then for both the Americas, and then was split into North and South America, although many countries around the world prefer the original meaning and still view America as one continent. In Spanish, the country in question can really only be referred to as one name: Los Estados Unidos, Spanish for the United States. Well, in English there are several ways to refer to the country, the most common of which is America. I can understand why South Americans may be offended by this, but I think there seems to be some misconception that the US are naming themselves after a continent and think that no one else matters, and that's really not the case. Or that everyone who calls the country America is ignorant, and again that's simply not true. And this probably stems from the fact that, internationally, they're not exactly the most popular country in the world. But allow me to explain why I think the country is referred to as America. First of all, there are 35 countries in the Americas, if you include the Caribbean, only one of which has the word America in its name: the United States of America. Although the same can't be said for Los Estados Unidos, South Americans referring to the country in this way may be considered offensive to their fellow Spanish-speaking nation, Mexico. Believe it or not, Mexico's official name is Los Estados Unidos Mexicanos, translated as the United Mexican States. It's not so bad in English since the words United and States are split up due to the different grammatical structures of the languages, but still, even though no other country in the world has United States in their name today, several have throughout recent history, including the United States of Belgium, the Republic of the United States of Brazil, the United States of Colombia, the United States of Indonesia, and the United States of Venezuela, the last 2 of which only ceased to exist around 60 years ago. So I really don't think the United States is a better way to refer to the country. On top of this, the USA was the first country in the Americas to become an independent nation, free from their European colonial master. The 13 colonies of British America broke away from the British Empire and declared itself independent in 1776, which led to the American Revolutionary War. Therefore, the 13 colonies of British America became the United States of America. So really, you could blame the British for the use of America in their name. However, I think the single biggest reason America has become a term for the USA is because of the demonym of the country. Citizens of the US are called Americans, and the reason for this is simply, what's the alternative? I mean, seriously, what else can you use? United Staters? I don't think so. In English, American is literally the only logical word to describe US citizens. Now, in Spanish there's no such issue, they have the word estadounidense, and that's fine. In Spanish, unfortunately the literal translation of this is, United Statesian, which is just so wrong on about every level and doesn't even make grammatical sense. Now, in Spanish they also have the word Americano, which is used to refer to all people from the American continent. This is where the confusion comes from. Americano obviously translates to American, but they have totally different meanings. I think the only way to address this issue is people learning a foreign language need to be taught words for the correct context and not simply the literal translation, as well as being taught the way the different languages view the continents. Therefore, Americano should not be translated to American, although there really isn't anything it can be translated to, since there is no continent called America in English. Still, it's not very common to refer to where you're from as a continent. I mean, I'm from Europe, but never once have I referred to myself as European. Although in saying that, the UK does love to pretend that it's not part of Europe. But despite this, South Americans do consider themselves Americans, although I don't really see why. If you're from, let's say, Bolivia, you should be proud of the fact that you're Bolivian, because if you say you're American, it implies that you're not. The US aside though, there is one other country which strongly objects to the term American being used to mean everyone in the Americas. Canada. I can assure you that if someone from Argentina who speaks English went to Canada and referred to the locals as Americans, the friendliest people in the world would become significantly less friendly to such individual. Canadians hate being mistaken for Americans, and given their accents sound similar to those not from North America, most Canadians probably have been mistaken for American while abroad. And unfortunately there are some incredibly ignorant people who probably think that Canada is part of the USA, which I can totally sympathise with, given that on several occasions after saying to people that I'm Scottish, they think it's part of England. But I digress. Although speaking of Canada, Canada is probably the only English-speaking country that would perhaps not refer to their southern neighbour as America, and instead opt for using the States or the US. Well, on the subject of North America, the Spanish word norteamericano, which means North American, is another word Latin Americans sometimes use to refer to citizens of the USA. Dictionary.com defines the word to mean citizens or inhabitants of the US, and UrbanDictionary.com says it's a more politically correct way of saying from the United States. But hold on a second, that's a little hypocritical. Americano is not an acceptable term for people of the US, but Norteamericano is? I can think of about 150 million people who might find that offensive. There's more to North America than just the USA. And if you're wondering why I didn't extend the offence south of Mexico, it's because North America means different things in English and Spanish. In English, it's a continent made up of 10 mainland countries, but in Spanish it's a subcontinent of America consisting of just Canada, the US and Mexico. Within the English and Spanish languages, there really is no ambiguity whatsoever. It's only when we speak each other's languages that there becomes an issue. However, in other languages such as German and Dutch, ambiguity exists because America can mean both the country or the continent. In German, some people use the term US Americans to refer to people from the US to avoid ambiguity. And maybe this sounds okay in German, but in English it just sounds wrong. The term American is used officially by the United Nations and is considered the correct way to refer to people from the United States. So, is America a country or a continent? Well, the short answer is both, and the long answer is that it depends on what language you're speaking. America can mean different things in different languages. In English, it can really only refer to the country, whereas in some languages such as Spanish, it can only refer to the continent. And there's ambiguity in other languages as it can refer to either. I think the only way to stop the arguments and ambiguity is simply respect the language you're speaking. And what I mean by this is that you should adopt that language's continental view of the world and correct use of the words. For example, an American in South America should avoid using Americano to mean just people from the US, and definitely avoid using America to mean the country they're from. Likewise, South Americans should not call themselves American when speaking English, or say America to refer to the continent, because in English no such continent exists. So, to sum up, in English, this is America here, the country, and its people are American. Showing our two separate continents, North America and South America, collectively the Americas, plural. In Spanish, this is America here, the continent, made up of 3 subcontinents, North America, Central America and South America. The country in question is Los Estados Unidos and its people are estadounidense. Thanks for watching.